For those of you who I don't know yet, this is Debbie Lichter, founder of Freedom Embodied Academy and the Freedom from Food Addiction program. And what we are talking about today is how to get unstuck, and more specifically, what actually has us getting so stuck in sabotage, stuck in whatever the rut is, whatever your cycle is, whatever your negative thinking pattern is, whatever has you feeling inert, like you're not moving forward, or that you're moving forward 5 steps only to move back 4 or 6 steps, right? Hey, Carla, so glad that you are here. So let's really dive in here today, because I feel like when we're talking about getting stuck, what we really have to get honest about is the number one thing that I see that really keeps us and holds us back. And this also happens to be, in my opinion, the hands down the toughest addiction, the hidden addiction that is the toughest to break free from, to get free from, to have freedom from. And that is this: the addiction to our own story. The addiction to our own story. Here's the thing. We have this idea of who we are, of how it is, of how things are, of how it's gonna be, of what we need, of what we know, right? We have all these ideas, and we can't help but coming into every new situation with all of our biases and all of our opinions and all of our perceptions and perspectives and thoughts, and we just can't help doing it. And so wherever we go, we're bringing all of that. We're bringing our story. And so imagine that. If you're walking wherever you go and you're bringing your story, then it's going to constantly block you from having a new experience. This is really funny, and I've got to just call myself out here, because this actually happened last night. I was talking to my boyfriend, and I was telling him, and I was so convinced. I was like, no, baby, we can't do it that way because of this, and this. And he just said, right, because you're basing off what's possible in the future off of how it's been in the past. Is that kind of insane or what? Like, and it had me just laugh, because I'm like, babe, this is what I teach all day long. But it's that insidious, right? That we can't even tell when we are so in our own story. And so here's the thing. What I want to talk about here right now is 5 ways to tell if you are stuck in your story, if you are in the addiction of story, of who you think you are, of how you think it is, of what you think is possible, of what you think you need. Because I can guarantee you that if you can start to get honest with yourself and start to get some awareness around where you are actually stuck in your story, and where this is not just how it is, this is just how you see it and how you think it is, it's incredible, because what it starts to do is it starts to create a layer of separation between how you think it is and between the possibility of like having a new experience. And that little crack, that little opening, that's where spirit can meet you. That's where you can actually be met and carried into a new experience. So let's get into these 5 ways to tell if you are stuck in your story. And just notice, as you're listening to these 5, just notice like which one resonates for you the most, and maybe just put it in the comments. Or if you relate to all 5. I mean, obviously these came from somewhere, so I could tell you right now that I relate to all 5. So let me know. So the first one, as an indication that you are stuck in your story, is that you have this sense of panic or anxiety or stress about the future. So raise your hand if you've ever woken up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, mind racing, can't get back to sleep because you are future tripping on something that may or may not happen. Raise your hand. Like, this is stuff that happens all the time. So, I mean, if you think about it, all of that is predicated on the story that we're not even making up about a story in the past, we're making up a story in the future. but we're like, this is how it is. This is how it's gonna be. This is how I am. This is how I know it's gonna turn out. And then we're already freaking out over it. So number one, if you have ever had that happen before, or if you have that happen on a daily basis, then I was just speaking with someone the other day as well, and she was like, I feel like I just have like my mind always needs to come up with something that I'm afraid of. Like if it's not a fear about this, it's a fear about that. I constantly am just, it's like my mind is just always looking for that. That is an indication of us being stuck in a certain story, right? Maybe that certain story is bad things are gonna happen, or I'm not safe, right? Or, you know, things feel out of control, you know, this kind of stuff. So, hey, Pam, good to see you. Okay, so that's number one. So we are going over 5 ways to tell if you are stuck in your story, okay? Number 1 was that you have panic or anxiety or stress about the future. Number 2 is that life feels hard or things feel like they are a struggle. Life feels hard or things feel like they're a struggle. This is such a big one, right? Because that feeling of like, and they used to come up for me all the time when like life felt hard. I felt like there were so many demands being put on me. Everyone needed something of me. I'm trying so hard, feeling super, you know, like resentful, or just feeling like, you know, nobody gets me, you know, kind of thing. I'm like, why is it so hard? And comparing myself to other people, and why does it seem so easy for them? And, you know, like this constant comparison thing. So notice if you get into that at all. Notice if you get into life just feels hard. It feels like a fight. It feels like you are out there every single day. As soon as you leave your house, or sometimes even before you leave your house, life feels like a fight. It feels like a struggle, and it's just this perpetual thing. So notice if that is you. Again, if you're relating to these, the panic, anxiety, or stress about the future, or that life is a struggle, just put 1 or 2 in the comments. We're talking about the top 5 ways that we stay stuck in our top 5 ways to determine, to tell if you are staying stuck in your story. And again, staying stuck in your story is really like, it's one of the major ways that we actually just stay stuck in life. And this is why it's important to gain this awareness about this stuff. Okay, number 3, hey Elaine, good to see you. Number 3 is that, oh my gosh, I love this one, is that it feels like there isn't enough time. It feels like there's not enough time. That there's just too many demands, and there's too much going on, and people need too much from you, or you've got to show up to too many things, or you've got too many commitments, and there just isn't enough time. And that feeling of like, okay, I can take that on, I can take that on, I can take that on, right? It's like we are totally stuck in a story of there isn't enough time. We are stuck in a story of the more productive I am, the more value I have, or the more helpful I can be, the more valuable I can be, the more lovable, the more likable I am, the less I'll be rejected. You know, these are some of the stories that go on for us that drive us to do all these crazy things. And so that fear that there isn't enough time, you know, this is also really, really important. Like the fear of it's not enough time. Any fear of not enough is part of a story. It's part of a story that there isn't enough, right? There's not enough time, there's not enough resources, there's not enough to go around, or I'm not enough. Right? There isn't enough, I'm not enough, I'm insufficient in some way, or nothing I do will be enough, or it won't be enough. Nothing will ever be enough, as in the case of like how I used to be with food. Like I would go to one of those fancy restaurants, you know, the fancy restaurants that put like an actual serving, you know, like a proper like meat serving on your plate, like 3 ounces or 4 ounces or whatever it is. And I like would look at it and I'm like, and like a serving of vegetables, and I would look at it and I'm like, that's not enough. That is not enough. Like, I'm gonna have to eat that. I'm gonna have to be polite with all of you people. And then I have to go home and raid the kitchen cupboard because that's not enough. It also comes up with like the, I'm, you know, like nothing I do is ever enough, right? So these are just some of the things. Start to listen for this stuff. These are some of the stories that we have going on. Tell me if you relate to the enough story. Just put that in the comments. You can say enough or not enough if you relate to that one. But that is number 3. So Number 3 of the top 5 ways to tell if you are stuck in your story. And if you relate to 1, 2, or 3, number 1 is that you get panic or stress or anxiety about the future. Number 2 is that life feels like a struggle, life feels hard. Number 3 is a feeling that there is not enough time. And then number 4 here is that it feels like certain conditions or circumstances or people are preventing you from doing what you want to do. So it feels like life is happening to you, or things outside of your control are preventing you from actually, like spreading your wings and shining your light and doing the different things. And maybe it's like your dependents, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your colleagues, maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your lack of friends. But that it feels like there's certain maybe it's your health, maybe it's your partner's health or a family member's health, right? I speak with so many caretakers, right, who are like, I can't be happy. I can't be free. This is out of my control. I'm caretaking for somebody, and my whole life is dedicated to serving them. And everything, their needs get put first, my needs get put last. And that's just how it is. So can you hear the story in that? Can you hear it? It's easy when it's not our story to hear other people's stories. That's why my boyfriend was so good at hearing my story last night, which I couldn't hear it. I was like, this is just how it is. And he's like, no, honey, that's a story. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. You're so right. So here's the stuff. So when it feels like they're doing it to me, or there's a circumstance that I can't do anything about, that kind of like that feeling that I'm incapacitated, I'm unable, I'm powerless against these forces that are happening, these conditions that are happening in my life, that is absolutely an indication of a story. And that story will keep us blocked forever. Will keep us blocked forever, because what that story does is that story says, no matter what I do, no matter what goes on inside of me, nothing will ever change because of the circumstances outside of me. And we can't spend the rest of our lives trying to fix and control all of the circumstances outside of ourselves. Although we try, we do try, but it's impossible, right? We can't get other people to do what we need them to do. We can try to manipulate them, and that might work to a certain extent, but that's not the solution. We all know that. And we essentially, it's like, what was that John Mayer song, like waiting on the world to change, like you keep waiting on the world to change. Like, it's just like, don't hold your breath, right? It's like, that's never gonna work. The only way that change happens is if something happens internally. But if you have created the story for yourself that it's these external circumstances that are impinging and impacting you and preventing you and blocking you from truly having what you want, then there's nowhere to go with that. You will perpetually stay stuck. So that is number 4. And number 5, and I love number 5. I love it because I feel this like nostalgic, like I rocked this story so hard for so long that I just feel like, oh my gosh, okay, it's this. Feeling unappreciated, misunderstood. Raise your hand if you feel misunderstood. Raise your hand if you're feeling misunderstood right now, right? I mean, continuously, right? So if you're feeling unappreciated, misunderstood, or taken advantage of, this is so big, because that feeling of like being misunderstood, I don't know about you, but it's like one of the biggest defenses. Like, nobody gets me, and all I'm trying to do is this, and all I want is this, and like no one gets it, and it's so hard, and all that stuff. And this is the stuff that absolutely eats away at us. And this is the stuff that has us fixated on like, I gotta give you a piece of my mind. I'm gonna finally speak up, right? I'm gonna finally speak up, and I'm gonna tell you off because, you don't understand me, and I need you to understand me. And we get so fixated on this stuff. And the truth is that we don't get any freer by walking around making sure that we are being understood. It's just, what it does is it's exhausting for us. It's exhausting for us. And the way that it comes across is that we are just like forever trying to like defend ourselves, you know, defend, explain, and justify. It's exhausting. And so just notice that if you have that thing, if you have any one of those things, right? Feeling unappreciated, right? Nobody appreciates me. I hear this all the time from people who are, well, I hear this all the time from moms. And I hear this all the time from people who are working in a company or in the corporate world. Totally unappreciated. I feel totally unappreciated. So that's one of them. And then there is the misunderstood by your family members, by your friends, by your colleagues, by your boss, by your employees, right? By like everybody in the world doesn't get you. Does your partner doesn't get you. Such a big one. And or taken advantage of. I hear that from people a lot. I fear that I'm going to be taken advantage of. And so just as you listen to these, what might even be easier, hey Dawn, what might even be easier is to listen for the story that might be underlying some of the ones that you don't relate to, right? In these 5 ways to tell that you're stuck in your story. Because maybe the life feels hard thing, you know, and life feels like a struggle. Maybe that's not really your thing. Maybe you don't really suffer from like there isn't enough time and there isn't enough, or I'm not enough, or there's not enough to go around. Maybe you don't. But then when you listen to it, can you hear the story in that? And if you do relate to them, I can tell you that I relate to all 5 of those things. Just put which one you relate to in the comments. I want to hear, I want to see, I want to hear this. I want to know which one of these you find, you know, the most familiar for you. And then I want to go into, so just the awareness that this isn't just how it is, that this is actually a story, and that the story is what's keeping us stuck. The story is what's holding us back from having a new level of freedom. So just that is already super, super powerful. But I want to share with you the secret. The secret, this is the stuff that I share and I teach about in depth in the Freedom Embodied Academy. So Dawn and Pam, Dawn, you're gonna be learning about it. Pam, you've learned about it, but we're gonna continue to dive deeper into it. Is this piece, and I just cannot emphasize it enough. So I'm gonna mention it here because I want you to know this stuff. And I'm going to support you with a couple tools about how to recognize these things. And then, of course, if you want to dive deeper and you want to get free of this stuff, you know, you can always, you know, connect with me and we can talk about, you know, if it's a right fit for you to actually be in the academy. We are just coming to the end of our enrollment phase right now in the Freedom Embodied Academy. Our next enrollment is next year, but if you're really, really committed, we might be able to squeeze you in. So if that's something that you want to do, you can just hop on my calendar at getsupport.today. I'll put that in the link after we're complete here, but getsupport.today and just grab some time on my calendar. But what I want to do is I want to share with you right now what the secret is. And you can write this down because this is super, super important. And that is this. You have to learn how to drop victimhood consciousness and entitlement consciousness. This is the piece that earlier this week, when I was on a call with a woman who has been doing inner work and spiritual work for over 30 years, who's done some very, very deep, powerful work. I know the work she's done. We've known each other for about 10 years. And she has perpetually been stuck. She's perpetually been, as long as I've known her, she's been stuck. And she's had, you know, a lot of other things in her life move, but as it relates to those last few addictions, she was totally stuck. And she reached out to me a few days ago and just said, I need help. I really, really need help because I don't know what I'm missing here. And I just feel like I feel completely motivated to move past this and totally scared out of my wits. I don't even know what I don't know. And this was the piece that I shared with her. I said, because she's like, I don't know. I just don't think that anything's gonna ever change. How many times have you ever thought that? I don't think anything's ever gonna change. And I said to her, and I just know her really well, so I knew I could be frank with her. And I said to her, well, you're right, nothing is gonna change. But it's not because you think you're damaged or you're irreparably broken, because I know that that's what she thinks about herself. I said, it's because you're stuck in victimhood consciousness and entitlement consciousness. And as soon as I said it, bless her heart, she was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Everything. She looked back at the last 30 years and she was like, everything that I have done and said and seen, everything boils down to feeling like a victim and feeling entitled. Everything. And, you know, I would love to say that she's the exception to the rule, but what I have found is that that is what it is for all of us. When we are being held back at whatever level, because, you know, after I help women get free from food and the other addictions that are holding them back, and they blast through, they rocket through into a new level of existence, then they come to a new launching pad for what's next. We all do. And so we're constantly bumping up against, okay, what do I feel entitled to now? And where am I feeling victimized right now? What's my story right now? And how can I blast beyond this so I can have a new level of freedom? This is such a golden key. I can't even tell you. So I want to know if you relate to this. I want to know if you relate to victimhood consciousness or entitlement consciousness. Just put it in the comments, victim, entitled, or put both. I mean, here's the thing. Technically everyone should be putting it in there if they're willing. If they're willing to be honest, they're willing to kind of, you know, play in this sort of, you know, kind of sharing and bearing all kind of, you know, like invitation I'm giving you. You don't have to, but really it's something that we all struggle with. And so what I want to do right now is I want to give you a couple of indications, couple of cues or indications that can help you start to recognize these patterns in your own life and see if you can start to become more cognizant of this stuff. Because again, just the awareness alone can help to start like uprooting these deep patterns, because you're no longer just living it. Yeah, totally. Thank you. It is eye-opening. It's super eye-opening. Like, there's something that's so powerful when you stop just living it as if it is truth with a capital T, and you start to see it as, oh, this is just a story. This is just a little paradigm that I created. And that is actually so liberating, because it means that I don't have to live in that indefinitely. That's not how it is. That's just what I thought about how it is. But if there's a whole other reality and like a whole other existence for me, I want that. And if what's standing in the way between me and having that is just being willing to get rid of my victimhood and my entitlement consciousness, show me where to sign up, right? So just the awareness alone is so helpful. Hey, Jennifer, good to see you. So again, we are talking about how to get unstuck here. If you're just tuning in right now, we're talking about how to get unstuck. We're talking about the main thing that has us staying stuck is being stuck in your story. We talked earlier in the video about 5 ways to recognize if you are stuck in your story. So you can go back and listen to that stuff because it is really, really good. And right now we are talking about how to actually move beyond your story, how to move beyond that paradigm, how to move beyond that, like, that ceiling, right? So that you can actually blast through into a new level of freedom, a new level of fulfillment, a new level of connection, a new level of trust, a new level of joy, a new level of just being comfortable in your own skin. So You want to know how to recognize that? You might already be like, oh, I got it. I know my brand of victimhood looks like this. I can tell you that my brand of victimhood, one of the things that I just went to town on was being busy all the time. Like being busy and like not being available. Like that was one of the things that I realized looking back. I loved it when someone would call me and be like, or send me an email and be like, I know you're busy, but I know you're super busy, but I need to ask you blah, 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 whatever. I loved it because it meant that they knew how important I was. Because the story that I had was the more things I'm committed to, the more needed I am, the more involved I am in different things, the more important I am, the more valuable I am, the more worthy I am. And so I kept my calendar, I was constantly putting things into my calendar because I was never enough, and so I needed more. P.S. by the way, that also translated into a voracious appetite, a bottomless pit for food. But so some of the other ways to tell if you are in your victim story, if you are walking around with the feeling of like, I deserve, no, sorry, that's the entitlement one. If you're walking around with the feeling of it's not fair, it's their fault, it's your fault, it's life's fault, it's the job's fault, it's the internet's fault, it's God's fault, what have I heard recently? It's the universe, like it's the planets, it's Mercury retrograde's fault, so, and it's not fair. It's not fair. She got that and I didn't get this. Why do you have that and I don't have this? This isn't fair over here. Why am I always doing without? Why am I the one that everybody else gets the thing and I don't get the thing? Why does everybody get their needs met but except for me? All of that stuff. And then being misunderstood is also part of the victim. Hey, beauty. Hi. Being misunderstood, feeling misunderstood. That is absolutely a sign of victimhood consciousness. And so as you're listening to all of this stuff, maybe you can start to see, and here's the other thing about victimhood consciousness. Like nobody I talk to wants to admit to having a part of them that is a victim. Because all of us are like, ew, I hate victim. Like, ew, I hate that energy. I'm super empowered. I get it. But here's the deal, is that the victim is an archetype. And archetypes, we all have archetypes. We all have a child archetype. We all have a victim archetype. We all have a saboteur archetype. We all have these archetypes. So, whether your victim is in the shadow and is really, really tugging at you, your victim doesn't have to be in the shadow tugging at you. You can have a very empowered victim archetype that's actually totally on board with everything that you're up to. But just recognize if that is going on for you. So that's the first thing, is to recognize if you got the victimhood consciousness thing. The second one is recognizing the entitlement. Oh my gosh. This one is really sneaky. This one's sneaky. So like I said, accidentally, this is the I deserve. But like, it's so sneaky because at the same time, like, get this about entitlement consciousness. We feel like we can hold both of these at the same time. So this is why I want to say it's very sneaky. We can hold feeling totally unworthy and not good enough. We can hold that and still feel totally entitled to certain things. Isn't that crazy? It's like, because when we think of entitlement, it's like you almost think of that like, bratty child that's like, I just want this and da-da-da, which sometimes, P.S. by the way, sometimes we are like that, right? Sometimes we're like I just want what I want. I deserve this. I just want what I want. I want to have my cake. I want to eat it too, and don't tell me not to do it. That's the entitled voice. That is the entitled voice. But it's all, we can have that voice and also at the same time feel like we're not good enough. And I think that sometimes we feel so victimized and we feel so not enough and so like inadequate that we don't even relate to also feeling entitled at the same time. For us, it just doesn't go hand in hand because we feel so polarized in the one direction. But here's the thing, is that entitlement and victimhood consciousness are two flips of the same coin. They go hand in hand. And so you can guarantee it. You can guarantee it that there's an entitlement. And we are entitled to things that we don't even, we just take as truth. I am entitled to health. I am entitled to happiness. I am entitled. We think that we're entitled to everything. We really, really do. We really, really do. It's fascinating. I'm entitled to be happy. Why? Why are we entitled to be happy? Why are other people, they don't get to be happy, but we're entitled to be happy? Why am I entitled to be healthy? I mean, truly, it's a question. It's interesting. It's something to consider. So if we so it's the I deserve this, or if you feel this like great offense, like how dare you, or like the don't you know who I am, that feeling, like the don't you know who I am? Like I am entitled to you giving me respect. I'm entitled to you knowing who I am. Now, this is not, I'm not talking about if you're in an abusive situation and you're not entitled to that person. I'm not going down that path. I think you know what I'm talking about right now. There is a way that we can walk around feeling so incredibly entitled that it is completely blocking us. And so here's the thing, is that you know this. You know inside, just like that woman that I spoke with a few days ago, 30 years, been doing deep inner work. As soon as I said those two words, she was like, yeah, that's it. That's it. You know if that's what's up for you. And if that is what's up for you, I'm telling you that this is the key to you getting unstuck, is you getting free from these things. And if you happen to be, because I know some of you watching this are in the Freedom Embodied Academy, if you happen to be in the Academy, then girlfriend, you are going to be getting free of this stuff, because that is what we do, and I teach you how to do it again and again and again, so you keep on blasting through to new levels of freedom. So if you are a part of that, then I'm super excited for you. And if you are not yet a part of that and you want to be a part of that, of course, you could always grab a spot on my calendar. We can see if we can squeeze you in. Would love for you too. You can head to getsupport.today, grab some time on my calendar. Either way, grab some time on my calendar, because I would just love to spend 15 minutes with you, supporting you with a breakthrough for whatever's next for you. And I hope today was, like Dawn said, hashtag eye-opening. And I hope it was helpful. Again, if you missed the 5 ways to tell if you were stuck in your story that I talked about at the beginning of the video, go back to the first part of the video, watch that part, and then really sit with those things and really sit with, am I living in victimhood? Am I living in entitlement? And am I willing to move beyond it? Am I willing? Just consider that. Put a comment in this video. I want to hear about it. I want to support you in this stuff. I am so honored to be here with you. Thank you for taking this time out and sharing it with me. Mwah. And taking it for you. Mwah. And I will connect more with you very soon. Bye for now.